And we are now live. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I'm live with my special guests, Opinionated European and Shmufkin TV. I have their links in the description below, so you can all find them. And we will be talking about a right-wing generation identity conference that they attended in the UK, reported on in the UK. And there were quite a lot of Antifa attacks and everything. So I thought you guys might want to know what happened. So I'll leave the floor open to you guys and let us know what happened.
Diana, why don't you start?
Well, basically on Saturday, Susanna and I were attending a Generation Identity conference, which was initially supposed to be somewhere around central London. However, last minute, the venue was changed due to security risks. So the venue moved to Sevenoaks, which is quite far away from London. It's a small town. We went there. It was a private conference, so it had a special guest list. Nobody else was allowed in. It was not in public. We were not like trying to convert people or whatever you might think. Sadly, Antifa eventually did find out where we were, and the Twitter page Hope Not Hate tweeted our location, which caused Antifa members to basically rush from London to our place and get us kicked out from the venue, unfortunately. Do you have anything to add, Susanna?
Yeah, so it was actually pretty crazy because what they did is they sent spies just around like the entirety of London. There were people on all the stations, basically all major stations. So like Victoria, Waterloo, pretty much everywhere, trying to find people who they could recognize. So like if Diana or I or Lucy Brown were going anywhere, they would know where we're going and then they would follow us. So basically they were tweeting out like for the past week about how everybody on that specific day should buy cards, so like travel cards, so they can travel anywhere in London if necessary. So they were really prepared, like, they knew what they were going to do, they knew where they were going to be. As you saw, this was happening in the morning. Children, even kids were ready to be there. Parents brought their kids over. So it was all very much pre-planned. What else? Oh yeah, Hope Not Soap, Hope Not Hate, Hope Not Soap. We're tweeting about...
Hate not hope.
Sorry? Oh yeah, exactly. They were tweeting about, that this Generation Identity is having a conference, yada, yada, yada. And also once somebody leaked out the location or they found it or whatever happened, nobody knows. We think that they had a spy in there. After they found out what was going on, they started calling the center where this was happening in Sevenoaks, saying, oh, you rented out the space to Nazis, to fascists. We're going to tell everyone you're part of them. You're part of the Nazis unless you kick them out. So they were calling, hundreds of people were calling their phone. Obviously, they started to panic and started kicking us out. They wanted to storm the stage. But yeah, also what we think might have happened is that there were pro-EU, anti-Brexit people just outside there campaigning. And we think that they might have contacted Hope Not So, because there were some tweets that they were sending about these radical Brexiters having a conference. So yeah, that's basically like the beginning of what happened. So then we were kicked out. We couldn't come back in. Some people were just locked in the building. And after about, I don't know, like a solid hour and a half, we just all left and we said, okay, guys, let's just go to a bar. So basically on our way down there, we decided, oh, okay, let's just go firstly. So we went to this bar and then we just moved a little bit to this more open space, which ended up being an M&S car park. Because, we thought maybe we'll just continue what we're doing. Let's just talk about what the plan is, who is going home, because we obviously wanted to go as a group. We didn't want to separate, because if we did, then, we could have been attacked, and it's always safer in a big group. And then, so we just congregate there, and then Antifa just shows up out of nowhere. And this really violent girl who looked like a what do they say, ferret, ginger ferret, there's like attacking these 6'5" guys, big guys, just kind of rushing at them. And they're like, okay, stop. They put their hands up in the air, like they wouldn't hit her. And then the men from their side started to like shout at us, everybody, there are violent Nazis having a conference in the M&S car park because they got kicked out. There's just this like weird old guy. And then this black guy went onto the street shouting the N-word. Yes, I'm an N. Yes, I'm an N. It was just like I had no idea what was happening. And
basically,
and then
Antifa
sorry?
that are following you from the conference to the car park. They're just harassing you, basically.
Yeah, so they had spies everywhere. So when we were in the car park, they obviously like told everyone where we were, so they could start congregating around us. And yeah, so these violent girls were like, the girls started. The guys on our side didn't hit them, but then obviously like the men on their side started to rush towards us and attacking us, hitting us. So if you actually go onto my YouTube channel, I have a video up, and basically so you guys can see just how aggressive Antifa were towards us. And it was only when we actually got attacked that we started to defend ourselves. But you know, at the end of the day, we have done everything, taken every single step to avoid this conflict, and that is just a fact. We went what was it, like 30 miles outside of London, or 30 kilometers. We were really, really far away, you know, from city center. It was like we were driving a solid hour, if not more. And then yeah, and then you know, we rented out this conference. We made sure that nobody knew the location. It's they who wanted this conflict to happen from the beginning. So it ended up being very aggressive. This woman called Lola, do you remember what her name was? Lola Go Up or something?
I think her real name was something like with an E.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Well, this woman who has been targeting Lucy Brown in the past, she attacked her. And if you actually look at Lucy's camera, it says, "I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight you." And she just attacked her. She pulled like a whole fist of hair from Lucy's head. It was just absolutely insane. You know, people getting attacked by these violent, horrible fascists it's absolutely insane. Yeah, another man got bottled, like he got hit with a bottle because he was defending us. So shout out to you, Vinny. So yeah.
And did the police do anything, or did they just let Antifa attack you? What happened?
The police arrived quite quickly. Like as soon as the fight started, they arrived like within 2 minutes because they were already in the area. And thankfully, as soon as the police arrived, the fight kind of ended because I think that Antifa just pussies. And yeah, so basically they stayed with us, most of the police, because Antifa just started running away. And the police, I think, just tried to maintain the two groups separated, them and us, from each other, so it doesn't continue anymore, because it was clearly Antifa was trying to continue the fight and trying to intimidate us and just yelling things at us. Like this woman who brought her child in there.
Oh my God.
The child was like 8 or 9 at least. He wasn't even 12. Like at 12, they would look much older. They were going through puberty, but he was so young, and she brought the child in. The child somehow got either frightened or hurt. And when she was taking him away, I think he was crying. She was yelling at us like, "Look what you've done to the child. What have we done to the child? We did not bring the child." They called us racist perverts. Yes, she called us the racist perverts.
Well,
I mean, I think it's their fault. I mean, they shouldn't bring children.
Sorry, the saddest thing about this story is that she had children and I'm still single, you know? That's the saddest thing. That woman was just absolutely tragic. Yeah, so she was calling us like violent Nazi racists and perverts. The perverts part I didn't understand, but who brings a 9-year-old child to an Antifa fight like that? That is just sick. That's actually sick.
Yeah, they should be investigated for child abuse.
But now we're going to be investigated now because of that.
But the guy who bottled Vinny, there was a report filed against him, and he's actually been taken by the police. He was arrested, but he was bailed by Antifa. Antifa put bail on, so they bailed him out. So basically, he's free, and he doesn't have a set address. So I have no idea how they're going to find him.
So I would assume that would be probably welfare benefits money that they bailed him out with, I guess.
Probably the donations that they get, because even they know communism doesn't work. They actually accept donations.
Yeah.
I did actually see, I think it was it some of you that posted?
It was Opinionated European.
Merchandise now, I think, Antifa.
Yeah, they have their own merchandise.
They're real capitalists.
Yeah, they're capitalists. That day was pretty wild, but then also, you know, yesterday was also quite, you know, crazy with the 120 decibel movement. So yeah, so basically what could Diana, you were there from the beginning, so maybe you can like tell what happened at the start.
From the beginning, we basically just met up at a nearby Starbucks. we all went there together as a big group. We decided to just stick together because we knew we're going to have a lot of opposition. Antifa is going to be there in large numbers because they knew ahead. They knew at least weeks ahead. So they had a lot of people there. When we got to Speaker's Corner, the police already had a big cordon to just keep them away, mostly like a bunch of animals that just have to be controlled. I saw that a couple of them were trying to like get to us in spaces where the police was not there yet, but the police just ran towards them and just pushed them back and said, no, you stay back. The police had to walk us like around a piece of lawn so we can get to the Speaker's Corner itself safely and have our speech. Along with all of us standing there recording the amazing 120 decibels people doing their speeches. The police was also recording the speech. They were documenting everything. So I think they're clearly on our side because all of the time they knew who the aggressors were, because all of the police, most of it was just around Antifa, just keeping them separated, just herding them in a group of like sheep. So people had their speeches. There were no interruptions. Antifa obviously tried to they had drums or something. They were starting to yell. They were like clapping at times, which was a bit ironic because they were clapping at good moments during the speech. Yeah, so after everybody had their speeches, we just decided to leave. We all went to a pub while, unfortunately, Opinionated European and Lucy, they stayed behind to film Antifa, so they did not know where we all went. We personally told them by messages afterwards. But we just went to a nearby pub. We were escorted by the police in a large group. The police kept us together, made sure that nobody's following us. We came to a pub, we were just chilling. Some people were having lunches, many were just having pints, having a drink, just sitting around, chatting. Nothing special. I think this was the most amount of business this pub has ever seen in quite a long while, because one of the locals passed by me when I was outside and asked like, hey, what's going on in here? And I said, well, we're just hanging out in here in a big group. And he's like, well, this pub has never been so full. This is usually empty. So I'm glad you're giving it business. And then
how many people turned up for the 120 decibel speech?
There were at least 30 of us, at least. Yeah, by the end, our group was quite large. We just filled the whole pub. There was no space to walk inside at all.
There was about 30 of us, but there was like more people there as well, because what Antifa basically did, they went there before us, annoyed everyone with their drums, shouts, something, anti-fascista. I just always laugh at it. It's so sad.
Not even the Muslims were there because of that.
They were just shouting. Everyone. They made everyone annoyed. And people afterwards, people were coming up to me and Lucy and others, and they were just saying, who are these people? What are they doing? What is this? And I said, we're here to talk about women's rights, blah, 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 blah. And they're protesting, us talking about women's rights. So yeah, it was just a very, very sad attempt on Antifa's side at, I don't know doing what. They just basically really revealed who they are. When the speeches, after the speech is finished, basically after, what's her name? Freya made her speech, I went over to Antifa and I was just recording what was going on because they were shouting and they were just calling me like shitty Lauren Southern, shitty Tommy Robinson, go back.
Ever.
Yeah, I know, best moments ever. Go back to YouTube or something. So it was funny at that point until Lucy came, and then they started shouting that we're white nationalists, racist, blah blah. So I asked, there was this kid, probably my age, probably from one of the universities very nearby mine, and I asked, what is one thing that I ever said that shows that I'm a white nationalist? And he's like, your Twitter. And I'm like, what on Twitter? Quote me, what on Twitter, please? And he was like, well, you should know, it's your Twitter. Yeah, exactly, because it's my Twitter. I know I've never said anything like that. And so, I get a lot of hate, as a matter of fact, from like American alt-right for not thinking in the same way. I really don't think that race matters, So them calling me a white nationalist, a white supremacist is just funny, especially because Diana and I and Lucy were not part of GI. We were there to report on what is happening. And they were asking us, oh, do you know what ethno-pluralism is? Do you know what this is, that is? And we're like, well, no, and we don't have to, because we're not that ideology. And we offered to talk to them and to make interviews that were unedited and just let them live stream and sign agreements that we wouldn't edit out the interviews that they would have given us, but they don't want to talk. So people are telling me in my YouTube comments, oh, you claim not to be a white nationalist, but then you hang out with white nationalists. But they are the only people in this debate who will talk to me. That's the thing. You know, with all of us, they are the only people who will talk. And so they are the only people we can actually interview. So, yeah, and basically after, you know, Diana left and everybody left, Antifa were still around and kind of like shouting at us and attacking Lucy and myself, attacking our appearance, saying we have ugly shoes. This isn't the first time this happened. They always say you have ugly shoes, which is funny because that's not really offensive. Somebody was also shouting, you're not very nice people. I'm like, okay. But yeah, you know, that was just funny. They just really embarrass themselves most of the time. They also send these two really strange women to follow us, because you know how Antifa has this militant wing, and then they also have like these little people who they will basically put on stations to spy on people and follow us. So there was one guy waiting by the entrance taking photos of us and like being on a phone call constantly, and there were these two really very strange women. Like both of them were 5 foot tall, if not shorter, and just kind of like wandering around dressed like homeless people, and just basically, you know, telling them what's happening with us. I took photos of them. I also posted it on my Twitter. And yeah, basically we had to ask the police to escort us to our car because we didn't want them to follow. We didn't want them to mess the car up. But yeah, so that was pretty much the day. And then I had to go to the airport to fly out. But Diana, you guys went to a pub and then they found you, didn't they?
No, that was when we went to the pub as a whole group. The police escorted us to a pub. They stayed there for around 10-15 minutes with us, saw that the coast is clear, and they left. And we were just hanging out, like I've said. And then you messaged me saying that Antifa knows where you are, run. And we were like, and I just stood there outside like, guys, they know where we are. What should we do? And everybody's like, no, we're staying. Let's just call the police and we're staying. So in like 5 minutes, literally, a big police van arrived. The police was already standing there waiting for it. And then suddenly, after around half an hour, it took Antifa so long to get there. I mean, it took us like 10 minutes to get to the pub. It took them around at least 40 minutes after they tweeted out our location to get to us. Finally, like this big group of sheep cordoned completely by the police, came, and they were just standing on the other side of the road shouting something, but we were inside the pub with the doors closed, so we couldn't even hear them. Neither could the pub hear them. But the police basically talked to the pub owners and explained to them that they will have to escort us all out into safety, even though Antifa thinks that we got kicked out of the pub. But the pub they did not care really. They were just like, no, this is like the most amount of business we ever had. I mean, but if this is going on outside, then I guess you guys have to leave, because we don't want to disturb our neighbors. We don't want complaints later that it's just a bunch of really frightening people with black masks and black flags and just looking terrifying, shouting things, or standing there.
That is the thing. Antifa, they always dress up in this all black clothes. They run around throwing stuff at people, shouting abuse, and they claim to be anti-fascist. They claim to be, but I think their behavior is quite. Now I know they are communists basically, but they seem quite similar to fascists. And I mean, they were going around harassing you, a Jewish girl, you know, all dressed in black. You know, you could almost mistake them for fascists. You know, it's
I don't think they care that I'm Jewish really. Because they're like, oh, you're hanging out with somebody like who knows Tommy Robinson. Well, literally Nazi.
Well, they don't like, I mean, Antifa, they don't like Jews very much.
Oh, yeah, they don't. They're probably Labour supporters, so.
Look at Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah. But yeah, they don't like Jews, but then again, they're against Nazis and fascists. And it's really confusing to me. I just think they're a bunch of socialists and communists who like know nothing apart from their mother's basements and whatever like their buddies tell them. And I'm pretty sure that they have never like read or listened to anybody's Twitter who they oppose, or anybody's videos or anybody's speeches. They just think that they're saying something racist and fascist, but they don't really want to do the fact checking of at least like listening to what they have to say.
I just can't take Antifa seriously since they exposed like Tommy, Lucy, and myself as apparently like identitarians and members of IG. I just can't take them seriously anymore after they posted a picture, literally a picture that I posted, and my profile photo from Twitter, and said, "Opinionated European, knows Lucy Brown and Tommy Robinson, men's rights activist and Christian, Nazi," or something. And then for Lucy,
Nazi.
it was like, "Follows T. Robertson and do camera." That was her description. And then
Sorry, what?
was puts the tit in identitarian. It was so funny. Like they're just so special. They're such special snowflakes. I can't take them seriously anymore. I genuinely thought that, you know, they were really very dangerous, but now I'm just thinking that perhaps it's just college kids who, I don't know, are just very militant and want to be part of some sort of struggle, and that's why they participate in stuff like this. Because I honestly can't take them seriously, looking at what they're doing and the actions that they're taking. Who goes and protests a speech for women's rights? Seriously, like this, it was just so ridiculous.
That's the thing. I mean, what was their point? You guys were at the 120 decibel speech at Speaker's Corner. You were protesting against the violence against women, and they, Antifa, were protesting you, who were protesting against violence against women. So does that mean that they are pro-violence against women, these Antifa people? Is that what this means?
What their hashtag was, I think, like, rape has no color. Because their issue was that we were protesting the huge growth of violence against women and rapes against women that are coming with all the cultures that are coming from third world countries with the huge amount of migration, unfortunately. And for them, they think that we only focus on this specific type of rape, that we don't care that if a white man rapes a white woman and all of that, but we care about everything. It's just that this problem is getting so huge just because of this migration problem. And for them, that's basically racist, because we don't want to basically get our cultures destroyed by this huge amount of people coming in who do not respect our culture and do not want to be integrated into the culture and want to literally make our countries, well, shitholes.
Well, basically, so just building on what Diana said, it's that obviously we are extremely concerned when any rape is happening, and we will criticize anybody who is a rapist, no matter what their skin color is, obviously. However, you know what Freya was talking about were cases like that woman who was almost raped during labor in Italy. Like the women in Germany who were assaulted during New Year's Eve celebrations, like the woman who was raped on the ferry from Sweden to Finland by 3 migrants from Somalia. So it's these things that she was talking about, because nobody is saying those things that unfortunately we have seen since this uncontrolled migration has happened. We have seen a rise in violence against women. And it's not to say that white men don't rape. Of course they do. But we are also highlighting that migrants do as well, and that nobody is talking about this. And we think, you know, that it's a serious issue that has to be discussed, especially because of how much we value integration. And because we are people who say we don't care about your skin color, if you're willing to integrate, if you're willing to assimilate into the culture, come, you're welcome, then we have to actually take steps to help these people assimilate. And by ignoring the issues that exist, we're never going to solve these problems, you know?
You know, and this is especially important in Sweden, considering Sweden has one of the highest rapes in the world, actually, per capita now. And it just came really recently in Sweden. I mean, there's an average of 20 rapes per day in Sweden happening. So last year there was 7,230 rapes that happened, and of course they do not collect any statistics on who is behind this, so you don't really know in Sweden. But there has been some leaks from the government, some leaks from people working in the government have leaked some documents, and some people have been doing research, looking at the court rulings, and they can see, and so journalists can then see, okay, they look at a court case, see who the guy was, and see if he was convicted, and so on. And in that way, and this was actually, I've seen a little bit of a change in this in Sweden. There was actually a mainstream newspaper in Sweden, Expressen, did an article where they had actually examined these court documents, and they found that I think it was about 95% of convicted gang rapists were actually migrants in Sweden. So it's important to talk about these subjects.
Yeah, I think another huge issue is that the victims of these kind of crimes, they're afraid to speak out because, first of all, they're afraid to be called racists for basically trying to convince a migrant who came into this country looking for a better life. And they're scared of basically the feeling of guilt if that person is going to be deported back into their own country, because I've seen you've been posting a lot of news articles about this.
Did you see my video I did about Sweden? There was this woman. She is I can't remember. I think she is a refugee activist. Anyway, she took in a migrant into her own home.
Yeah, I remember that. Her daughter.
And her 12-year-old daughter was actually sexually assaulted by the migrant in her home, but she refused to report to police because she was afraid that the migrant was going to be deported from Sweden. I'm not kidding you. This is what she admitted to in court. So the daughter, she was horrified, and she refused to go home to her mother from school. So instead, she called her dad. They were separated, divorced. So her dad came and picked her up, and I don't even believe she told the dad. She was too afraid, but she told a friend, and then the friend went and told her dad, and her dad immediately then reported it to the police. But her mother would not report the attack to the police because she was afraid the migrant would be deported. So she literally cared more about him than her own flesh and blood. I mean, it's crazy.
I don't think that problem exists, for example, when the rapist is, as they would say, a white man. I don't think that problem would exist if a man, for example, isn't a national, is a citizen of that country and isn't a migrant. They wouldn't be scared of that because for them, this is the culture of extreme feminism, I assume.
For me, another thing I would just like to say is I think it would be great for anyone interested in what actually happened to go on Shmufkin TV's Twitter or my own Twitter and actually watch the videos, because we were live streaming, so it's completely unedited. And really, you guys decide if you think that this is Nazism, if you think this is far right, fascist ideology, if it's just women who really care about their lives and about their well-being and just want to talk about the issues that matter to them. You guys decide for yourself, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can think that you are Nazis. I think that's just stupid.
Still gonna get called Nazis. There's no going back now.
Yeah, I mean, well, the left is calling everyone Nazis nowadays. I can't believe how many times they've been called. I mean, I was reporting on a protest that happened in Gothenburg in Sweden back in October, and the left they actually accused me of actually being part of the Nazi group, and I was just reporting on the protest, and the police, they were pushing me away and creating barriers between me and them. I mean, you could clearly see I was not in the Nazi protest. But anyway, these Antifa guys claimed that I was together with them, which was absolutely untrue. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy what these people come up with. One thing I wanted to I just had on my mind that Opinionated European said in the beginning of the stream. You said that you thought that you had lots of Antifa people and these guys from Hope Not Hate following you around, and that you thought there might have been an infiltrator giving out the address and so on. I was just thinking about that myself, because Martin Sellner, he was actually banned for the second time now from coming to the UK because he was going to the conference as well. And I believe it was just sent home yesterday on Sunday. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I was actually at the airport trying to get a photo of him in handcuffs, but I didn't catch him. Like, it was just we were hoping he would go through the main entrance, but we don't really know what happened. It's all so quick. It just goes like this and it's over. But yeah, he was basically banned, if I remember correctly, because the items that he had showed how extremist he was. And there was like the speech and basically a t-shirt he had. So those were the extremist items. It's really, really insane. And he was put in the detention center, and yeah, basically insane, completely crazy.
Yeah, and I think, but the thing that really was on my mind, they said that this Hope Not Hate, or as I like to call them, Hate Not Hope, they had, I think they said that they actually had a guy on the airplane together with Martin to spy on him. I mean, so someone, I mean, I don't think Martin went out, publicly with his plane ticket and said, "Yeah, I'm going to be on this plane at this and this time."
That's the thing. He did. He posted his flight details.
Yeah,
Did
he posted when he will be arriving at the airport. That's what I've
okay.
seen on YouTube, and I think it's quite easy to find out the flight from
Okay.
Austria to Stansted.
But regardless,
Okay, so they posted them, but
crazy that they would be spending taxpayers' money because that's how they're being funded on
and George Soros.
on spying on somebody. On it. I have no words. Every time now that I have to go through security, I just pray everything goes well. And actually, when I was flying to the UK just a few days ago, my passport was denied at the scanners, so I had to go to the border police, and I was just shaking because I thought, "Oh Jesus, what if?"
Yeah, it must be scary. It's I myself am not going to the UK in quite some time, that's for sure, because yeah, I'm pretty certain, especially with the recent events, I will probably be in the very least stopped at the border as well. So I don't see any point in going to the UK. But again, why should I? I mean, I don't really understand why anyone would want to live in the UK. If you can live in other countries like Norway, it's much nicer, much less. It's much more, shall we say, European than the United Kingdom. I mean, there's much less migration, there's much less crime, everything just seems much nicer here anyway. So I don't understand why people would want to live that much in the UK anyway anymore.
Personally, I just really love this country. I try to find those little bits that are still UK, that are still British, and just get a hold of them and just keep it up, because I honestly came to this country as a student and I just fell in love with it. I really love this place. And I really want to help. This is why I'm joining all these people. I'm joining Opinionated European to do all this activism, to do all this reporting, to just bring all this news out so people will know more about this and will somehow join the fight to keep the UK basically.
And, it really, really upsets me when people like Katie Hopkins tweet, for example, "Oh, I have given up on the UK. There is no hope." We are people who aren't even British, and we care about this country more because we live here, because we see it as this center. It's always been a center of Western values, Western civilization, of history and philosophy and everything, and we don't want it to fall apart. And then people who are really British tweet stuff like that out, and that I remember reading that tweet and I just felt really upset, because I think there is always something to fight for. I could never imagine if Poland, for example, was a country that was really falling apart, that had a lot of tensions, whether it's sectarian or racial or whatever. I would do everything in my power to bring people together, and definitely would never say, "Oh, I'm giving up on this country."
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting. I've been seeing there's been quite a lot of debate about that in right-wing groups recently. Some people are saying that you should just give up. Other people are saying that don't be defeatist and so on. I don't really have that much of an opinion. I think some people will feel quite disappointed in what's happening. Other people want to continue fighting, as you will, if you'll call it that way. I think it's interesting to see the Swedish kind of right-wing groups. They are very what should I say, pro keep fighting for the future. Basically, they don't seem to like people who are defeatist, to put it that way. But yeah, I don't know how it is in the UK that much. But yeah, I guess you guys probably know better than me.
Yeah. I'm just worried that Antifa will stage a protest at my university or something. That's the only thing that worries me, because they already tweeted at my uni a picture of me. Thank God they chose a good picture. A picture of me where I'm just looking to the side and I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to to be reporting on the 120 decibel thing," and they just like put that photo, cut it in half, and then like my mouth is red and I have like one eye is Nazi sign, and it's the worst edit ever as well. But it's just so dumb, and they just said, new fascists, old fascism or something, and tweeted at my university. Just I know I'm gonna be having a lot of trouble with that. So if you guys watching, if you want to subscribe to Shmufkin TV and myself, we'd appreciate that, to just always have something to fall back on in case we get
we're mainly on Twitter regarding these type of things. My YouTube channel is more chilled. but everything political, everything about Antifa and all these events will be on our Twitter pages.
Yeah, make sure everyone to go and follow Shmufkin TV on her Twitter and YouTube. I have the links in the description below, and Opinionated European on Twitter and YouTube. I have the links in the description below as well. So make sure to follow them and subscribe to them. I know there's been some there's been some problems the last few weeks with YouTube and the subscriber things, but make sure to so that's why you have to make sure to not only subscribe but also hit the notification bell as well. I don't know if the new problem that YouTube has affects the notification bell as well, but make sure to subscribe and both hit the notification bell. It's very important. So make sure and do that too when you go and follow Opinionated European and Shmufkin on their YouTube channels. So yeah, I think we'll start to wrap this up here then. I think it's been a good conversation and very informative and interesting things that happened in the UK this weekend. I wish I could be there myself, but yeah,
you don't.
I don't think maybe I don't. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think it's fun to report and protest, but yeah, if you want to live the kind of quiet conservative life, then Norway is probably the better option for you to live in.
I think we just like the action.
Yeah, just the excitement. It's exciting. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's the adrenaline.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, if you want really exciting things, you can go and meet Antifa in Sweden. They are pretty wild. I had an encounter with them back in October, and they were shouting. They were actually they were using slingshots to hurl rocks at the police and me, and it was insane.
Where was the police, by the way? Why didn't the police shut them down? I didn't understand that, because the police in the UK, I have to say, yesterday was great. They separated us properly. They pushed the Antifa to their place. You know, they were obviously on our side because, you know, we are the ones who were peaceful, and they were the ones who were shouting and trying to disturb everything. So the police did an amazing job yesterday. I have to give them that. So where was
the police in Sweden? They were well. What happened was it was a march, a protest that was staged by the Nordic Resistance Movement, which is a Nazi group, or National Socialists, they like to call themselves. They don't like to be called Nazis. But they held a protest. They had about 600 people turn up for a march. So they had like a proper march. They had like shields and riot gear and shoulder pads and flags and banners and everything. It was a interesting thing to see. I've never seen anything quite like it. But anyway, they had a march, and as soon as the march started, they went off from their designated course, and the police all the police were marching with them basically as a line, basically escorting them. But as soon as they deviated from the course, the police tried to stop them, and they started to fight the police. And 20 of the Nazis got arrested. A policeman had his arm broken from the fighting, and they basically shut the whole thing down. They got in loads of police vans, just blocked the Nazis off completely, and then you had all Antifa on the other side go running amok. Basically, they had pretty much free reign because all the police were just focusing on the Nazis. They put in some resources to try and keep the Antifa separated from the Nazis as well, but they didn't really surround them. They didn't really arrest Antifa very much, but they put up like a barrier between them and the Nazis. But these Antifa guys, I mean, the Nazis and Antifa, they were both as violent as each other. I mean, the Nazis, they attacked the police. Antifa, they attacked both the police and the public. So it was quite intense. Yeah, and the thing was, it was actually people from the no-go zones in Gothenburg and Malmö actually came to the protest and joined together with Antifa. And they were the ones that were hurling the rocks. So they had slingshots hurling rocks at, you know, you've seen the Palestinians, they have these slings and they hurl it at the Israeli soldiers. Mm-hmm. They did exactly the same thing against the Swedish police and against the public as well. And I got it on film. I think that was the footage you saw. Yeah, I think I sent it to you yesterday. It's on my YouTube, and yeah, they used they didn't really get arrested, but if you see some of my other videos, you can see the police are a little bit further back trying to protect themselves from the rocks that are being hurled. So the police were there, but not really that much. They weren't that close to Antifa there, so you couldn't see them. But it was intense. I mean, these guys from the Antifa / people from the no-go zone, they were actually shouting Allah Akbar as they were hurling rocks. I got that on film as well. But they did arrest the guy that was throwing the rocks with a sling. He did get arrested later on, a couple of days later after protest, because it turned out he was actually a terrorist. He came from Somalia a couple of years ago, and he was a member of the terrorist group Al-Shabaab, and he had been taught how to make bombs and shoot with machine guns and so on. And he actually got, and now he was in Sweden protesting together with Antifa, hurling rocks at people. And one rock flew straight over my head and hit the building behind me. And then all of a sudden, the ordinary Swedish citizens, just this ordinary passers-by, when they saw the rocks come flying, they actually got really angry and started attacking Antifa. That was quite incredible to see. If only more Swedish people acted like, if only more Swedish people kind of thought that way as those passers-by did, I think Sweden would be in a much better situation. You know, they saw Antifa hurling rocks at the police. They decided to intervene and stop these guys. So they actually got into a street fight with Antifa. That was quite a sight. And we even had elderly Swedish, there was even an elderly Swedish woman, a migrant from Iran, I think. She's now a teacher. She actually stood up with her like little purse and started shouting at them, "Now you really have to behave yourself." That was so good.
I was just on YouTube, and I've been sent links to videos in which we're both included, Shmufkin. So I'm going to show you in a second. It's just like people have recorded us basically arguing with Antifa when they were calling us ugly and whatever. They said that basically because of us, they're not interested in white women anymore.
Oh, yeah. We don't want to breed with them anyway, so.
Fun, fun, fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically it. It was just one funny, if I can just give one last anecdote before we finish. It was funny because both Shmufkin and I were streaming live from the conference. And basically what happened is that we have this group chat called Bash Fash.
Yeah.
And
as a joke.
As a joke. And they were sending messages to the group chat. And somebody like the GI people who were organizing it saw it. And they were like, "Oh, she's a spy." They basically took her phone out, like, run away with it, like they were just looking what was going on, and then Diana had to just explain everything.
Yeah, I just came out like, well, is something going on? Because when I saw him grab my phone from the tripod and get it, I thought something was going on outside and then just needed to film it quickly because nobody had their phones. All the phones were taken away apart from those who were going to stream. And I just came out and I'm like, "Hey, what's wrong, guys? Something going on?" And they're like, "Can I just look at your messages?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What's up?" He's like, "There's this one Bash Fash." And me and all the friends who are in this chat room just looked at each other like, for fuck's sake, this is just way too funny. It was way too hilarious. I just showed it to him that it was like us. It was just a joke, and he's like,
was that Lucy's idea, by the way?
No, it wasn't Lucy's. It was another one of our friends who is actually also an international student here, and he just put like the Antifa logo in the picture and just wrote Bash Fash there just as a joke. It triggers us all the time.
I take credit. I called it Bash Fash.
Did you?
Logo in. Yeah.
That was way before you came to the chat room. I remember that.
No, it wasn't. I was there from the beginning. What are you talking about?
All right.
Anyway, that's all that happened. Well, it was just an interesting day. But yeah,
so
our shoes got insulted. I'm gonna have to burn the shoes now because obviously I feel so bad about having ugly shoes.
Ugly shoes are the worst.
According to Antifa, yeah. There was also this girl called Lily Penny, I think. She's this very, very short girl with like pink hair, and she goes on TV very often.
Short pink hair, like shaved.
People always make fun of her because she's like this communist apologist for like Marxist crimes. And there was this other guy on a wheelchair who kept on driving into people. Just like there was our friend was just standing there peacefully listening, and then this guy just keeps on like reversing into him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And the guy was basically just like, "Well, you know, I won't let you congregate here, you Nazis," or something. And then the guy is just like, excuse me, officer, are you gonna do anything about this guy? Just they were absolutely pathetic, just an absolute joke.
It's a little scooter of peace.
Yeah.
Oh, I can just imagine that scene.
It was so funny though.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it. So I think we'll have to wrap up. But thank you so much, Peter, for having us. It's a pleasure as always.
Yeah, thank you
And I'm
very
sure
much.
we'll see one another soon again.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for coming, and it's always a pleasure to have you on. And it seems like the people like you. I'm looking at the live chat here. People definitely seem to like you, so we'll definitely do more streams together. I hope, if you guys are up for it.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, have a good night, and we'll see you later. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And make sure to hit the like button on this stream if you enjoy this. That keeps us motivated doing more streams. So please hit the like button, and thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. And make sure to follow Opinionated European and Shmufkin on their Twitter and YouTube. I'll leave the links below, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.